All right, so I'm currently on the phone with Elliot. He's another musician that reached out about the interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey guys, my name is Elliot Steinwedell. I hail from Pasadena, California. Pasadena is a suburb of Los Angeles. I was born into a musical family, multi-generational. My mother played violin. She sang. She was from a church family. Her father played violin and sang bass, and her mother actually was a self-taught pianist and organist, and she sang tenor with the men in the choir. And my mom, as I grew up, my mom played cello as well. And my dad, on the other side of the family, was a professional guitar player back in the 70s. So, I had the classical training and I had the, play by ear training when I was young. I was about maybe, I want to say my earliest memories of music were in the womb, actually, because my dad would play guitar while I was in the womb. And I can't say I remember that, but I felt the vibe. And as soon as I was able to hear, I remember music in the house, and I remember, listening to the piano while laying underneath it.
That's awesome. So you come from a very long line of musical family.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir. To my knowledge, we still have my great 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 grandfather's 1890 Washburn parlor guitar. Um, and he played as well. I forgot to mention him. So, yeah, it runs in the family. It's in the DNA, and I grew up just playing lots of music around the house, and basically I was starting to I began singing around 5, and I was playing piano by ear because I had such energy, and I could never sit still. So my parents said, you know what? Okay, we're just going to let him, lead the way. He'll play by ear, and he'll learn to read music whenever he learns to read music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little did I know that I wouldn't learn to read music until I reached college.
Sure.
Um, you know, and that was an experience in itself. I began playing my forte instrument, bass, when I was about 8 or 9. Uh, I The story behind that is really quite amazing. Actually, I was playing piano, and I remember VH1. For those of you who don't know what VH1 is, it's a channel on TV that broadcasts old music videos and concerts and footage of the like. And I saw Cream with Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker. And I saw Jack Bruce playing his EB3, and they were playing Crossroads at the Royal Albert Hall in London. It was their last, hurrah, basically. It was the last concert that they were ever going to play as a group. And the light went on. I mean, it just was like, oh my gosh, like move over a piano. I want to play bass. Like, this is it. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's like the Lord just said, you're going to play bass. And that was it. And I started playing bass right after that. It was very influential. I started researching as much about bass as I could. And mind you, I'd already had a couple of private music teachers up until that point. But I taught myself until I was about 15. I went to the LA Music Academy. It's now LA College of Music, but at the time it was called LA Music Academy. And I befriended one of the teachers there, and she became my main bass teacher until I actually graduated high school. And then I ended up going to the college after that. And, I spent a number of years learning from a man who I still is my private mentor to this very day. And shout out to Steve Billman. He has been my mentor for almost, if not 13 years now. The man is he's awesome. He's taught me so much. I He's played with Frank Gambale. He's played with, Ralph Humphrey, who played with Frank Zappa and the Mother. He's played with Brad Rebuchin. He's played with Billy Cobham. I mean, it's like, you just sit there and go, really? So yeah, no, I play about four other instruments as well, but bass, I'd like to say bass is probably my biggest forte, both upright and electric.
Okay. And so you kind of went over a lot of information there. A lot of it
Yeah,
is kind of down the vein of the questions that I typically ask to kind of, get a
sure,
good
sure,
feel of, how you're introduced to music and everything.
sure,
But I'm going to ask kind of a bit of a different question. And
absolutely.
do you feel like growing up in that sort of long history of having musical family members that there was a pressure for you to be a part of music, or do you kind of feel like you organically made the decision for yourself?
Great question. I was organically influenced. I very much so was very interested in the idea of sounds and rhythms. I was a very rhythmic person. And it wasn't even just in the realms of just music. Like I was into trains. Like I love the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all these different sounds. And I just, music was the one outlet that I could really say that I felt completely free in. And regardless of what, my other family members from previous generations or even my parents for that matter, they just supported me. They just said, you know what, go as far as you can and we'll be right behind you in it. And that's what they've done my whole life. And I'm so thankful for that. So yeah, it's been a organic experience for that.
Awesome. So, along those lines, growing up and being around such like an impactful environment that pushed you towards music, whether it
Sure.
be by environmentally or peer pressure kind of thing. Um,
Sure.
how did you kind of formulate your opinion of the type of music that you wanted to make and be a part of?
Well, I was always um, I was very aware of the idea of improvisation and the area of being able to come up with things on the fly in the moment. For example, one of the things I did in high school, I went to international boarding school, went from 8th to 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did and was assigned to do was I had to play piano competitions at Rotary Club competitions with different schools. And I didn't know how to read music, mind you. So I had to, come up with, and this example is a perfect way of showing you that I was really into stuff that most pianists or competitors weren't doing. They had sheet music, they were classically trained, they were everything that I wasn't. And I was a boogie woogie. I was a boogie woogie pianist. I played stuff like Albert Ammons, Pete Johnson, Speed Lux Lewis, that sort of thing. But what happened was I didn't have any sheet music. So when I went up to the judges and I said, "Hi, my name is Elliot Steinwedell," da 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 da. They said, "Where's your sheet music?" I said, "Oh, I don't have any. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and I hope you enjoy it." and but those experiences help formulate the way I love to play, which is to play jazz. I love playing jazz. That's one of my favorite genres to play because one of my professors in college actually told me, and he was actually a drummer who played with Oscar Peterson, and he played with Ben Webster. He played with Niels Henning Orsted Pedersen. This guy told me one time. He said, old guy. He's in his 80s now, and he told me, he said, "Elliot, can you define jazz for me?" And I was just stuttering. I didn't know what to say. And he said, "Let me tell you what it is, kid." He said, "It's an impromptu, improvisational, compositional conversation." And I was like, well, there you have it. And but that experience really changed my opinion on music that I play because I love improvisation. I love the idea of even something like Cream, where you have the verse and then you have the guitar solo and everybody's soloing, but they're not getting in the way of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to answer your question. Those are some experiences that I had that kind of shaped who I became as a musician.
Sure. And so once you kind of did have that, formative process of how you wanted to approach playing music,
Sure.
How did you kind of start bringing in other people, or did you start looking for other bands to join?
Yeah, I did both actually. When I was in high school, we had a talent show slash arts fest that we would put on every year. And I was a utility player at my school because my school, it was very it was very classically trained oriented. So if you wanted to play guitar, you had to find somebody that could play guitar. But the odds of that happening were very, they were small. And so I was given the opportunity to play in lots of different environments with lots of different types of music. And as I did this, one of the things I started to realize is, hang on a second, maybe I should become a musicologist. So I started researching the origins and the different genres of what I was playing. So I was doing my homework in that, and then I suddenly realized, I said, well, maybe I should start some of my own groups and stuff. So by the time I got out of high school and I was in music college, I started, playing on recordings, and I started, putting myself out there and saying to people, "Hey, listen, I'd love to play on, your EP, or I'd like to, collaborate. I can arrange because I'd, done some a cappella work as the bass singer previously." And I said to them, I said, I'd like to participate, and obviously, inviting myself, but just taking them out to coffee, marketing myself, politely. That really helped a lot with how to get into bands and stuff. And one of the bands that I was in was called Spinning Blue, and I was a blues rock band that I was in, and it happened on the funniest way that you could think of, which was there was a guy that by the name of Harrison Flynn. Shout out to Harrison Flynn. He was a blues rock player, guitar player who could play a slide guitar a lot like Dwayne Allman and of the Allman Brothers. And he
Mm-hmm.
also loved Eric Clapton. He loved Cream. Loved a lot of the stuff that I liked. And so one day I was in the practice room and he came in and he said, are you playing? I'm So Glad by Cream, the live version?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am. You want to play?" And bada bing, bada boom, something happened there, and we were in a band together for about a year and a half, and we really had a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. So, where does that bring you to now? What sort of projects are you involved in?
Well, because of the pandemic, it hit my career kind of hard. I mean, I haven't played a single live gig since February of 2020. So, doing everything virtually. I teach privately, and I have taught privately for the last, 3 years. So I have been able to, uh, you know, keep going on on that private teaching scale. But I have to do that, of course, socially distanced, which is not the easiest thing to do because, put your finger right there. No, 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 right there. It's like, I can't touch the guitar, or the bass or whatever it is. And, but I have been doing everything virtually. So it's been kind of a blessing and a curse in a sense because it's forced me to be more creative about how I'm going about these things. And I've worked with a DJ. Shout out to DJ Daria. He's a friend of mine who actually needed help with an electronic house tune that he was composing and getting together. And he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, can you play a funky bass line to this?" So he sent me the track and I gave him three different tracks in response. And he was so funny. He said to me, like, when he replied back, he said, "Dude, I only needed 4 bars of the second track. What happened?" And I was like, "Well, you told me you wanted variety, so I gave you variety." So, but and so I've been working on an EP with him, and which is kind of unorthodox because he you don't usually hear about electric bass that's actually played with house music. That's
Right.
kind of something that you don't really hear about. You usually hear like, "Oh yeah, he did the MIDI," or "Oh yeah, he did that," via keyboard or pads or plugins or something. And I'm just really proud that, I've actually made a difference in that guy's creative flow. And I just think it's really great. So that's one of the things that I've been working on recently. And I've been working on my own demo, a ballad that I wrote about 3 years ago, but I've never had the time until now to really hone in on that. And my mentor, Steve Billman, and my vocal mentor, shout out to Jessica Botcher, she has helped me so much with the arrangement vocally. So I'm very thankful.
Awesome. We'll get into more about where people can find that stuff in a moment.
Sure.
But before we get there, I just want to give you the opportunity to share a couple of like your best memories and most
Oh,
prominent things that have
sure.
happened to you surrounding music.
Yeah, well, one of the most influential things that ever happened to me was I went to the Baked Potato, and if anybody doesn't know the Baked Potato, it's a club in Studio City where anybody who's ever been anybody, whether you're an aspiring musician or you're a legend, you've played there. And the Baked Potato is known for being a very small, intimate club. And I went to go see Abraham Laboriel Sr. And if you guys don't know who that is, he's played on 3,000 albums as a bass player. He is a former flamenco guitar player turned into bass player. His son plays for Paul McCartney as the drummer. So, and anyway, so Mr. Laboriel, he just, I mean, he and his band opened hands with, I think it was Greg Mathieson on Hammond B3 Oregon, Bill Maxwell on drums. I mean, it was like, what just happened here? And so
Mm-hmm.
I went up and we had taken our Albanian friend, Butrin Serhati with us, just, to give him kind of a taste of the town.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told my dad, I said, hey, you want to go meet Mr. Laboriel? And he goes, no, I think this is just a bass player to bass player thing. And I said, oh, okay, well, if you think that's what I should do. And he goes, yeah, go do it. So I went up to Mr. Laboriel. I said, Mr. Laboriel, thank you so much for that blessing, man. I don't even know what to say. And the first thing he said to me was, I'll hear you someday.
Wow.
And
Nice.
I was just like, okay, hold the phone for a second. Like, you don't even know who I am. Like, I'm just some guy that, from Pasadena who's just trying to, make a living doing this thing. I just want to make a small contribution to music. That's all I care about. But you're telling me this? Like, what? And he was so kind and he was so encouraging. And that was one of the biggest moments of my life musically where, here's a guy that could have said anything. And he said that. And it was like, talk about inspirational. Um, Another big moment for me was when I was 15 years old. I was attending a church called Lake Avenue Church in Pasadena, my hometown, and it's about 5 minutes away from where I grew up. And this church has about 5,000 people that go to this church, so it's fairly large. And I was called to sub for the bass player who normally was play big church because I was playing in high school ministries at the time. I was 15 years old, and so they asked me to sub, and I said okay, I'll do that. What I didn't know was that I was going to play in front of 3,000 people per service. And at the age of 15, I was not ready for that. I didn't know if I could do it because, stage fright. And, I was a little uncertain about, okay, I've never done this before. And I said to myself, okay, you know what? I don't know if I can do this. And I started getting really, really nervous. And one of the drummers, shout out to Randy Drake, people. He's awesome. He's been an LA drummer, legendary, studio guy. He's played forever.
Mm-hmm.
He came into the bathroom where I was feeling kind of sick from nerves, and he goes, "Hey, Elliot, you doing okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just feeling really nervous, and I'm a little sick to my stomach." And he goes, "Hey, you're just giving God to get back to God." And then immediately my nerves went away, and I was like, "Oh, thank God," literally. And it worked. And so I've never been nervous for any gig or for any recording session ever since then because I just remember that mantra and it just works every time. So those those some of those experiences really shaped me, and I've been thankful for it ever since.
Awesome. So where can people find stuff that you're working on or have done, or look forward to stuff that you're going to be releasing?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the stuff that I do, I can actually personally say that it's been mainly not on the main platforms at this point. At this point, because of the pandemic, I've actually um, been inquiring to DJ Daria whenever his EP comes out. Uh, I will have to actually. I actually don't know what the EP is called yet, and so when that comes out, I will be able to, forward you the how do you call it? Title of the EP. Some of the old recordings that I played on, a lot of those musicians, they just went on with their careers. So I'm not exactly, how far they went with their, EPs or their albums or anything like that. And a lot of it was when I was still in college. So I don't really know, professionally speaking, some of the recordings if they're even still existing, sadly. Um,
Sure.
but I
Well,
can't. But I do have an Instagram. People, if you're interested in checking me out, I do have some stuff that I work on just for fun. Just to kind of introduce and show who I am. Um, my Instagram is SHEP uh, THEBASSMAN 91. Jet the Bassman 91. and
excellent.
um and yeah, so you can check me out there. And I believe that what you do in music, what you put into it comes out of it.
Hmm. And when you
And
do have that stuff released, when it is getting out there, just let me know and I can update the link
absolutely,
and everything to make sure that,
sure,
try to drive some traffic to it. So
absolutely,
I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out like their last word. So, just a message that you
yeah.
want to throw out there that you just resonate with.
Oh yeah, sure, man. Well, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to have me on here, and it's been a really great experience, and I take every experience, to heart. And for me, one day I was actually looking at musical quotes, and the quote I live by is a quote from Beethoven, and he said, "Don't practice your art, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise man to the divine." And that really resonated with me, which is basically like, don't just practice what you know, but go into the places that you don't know and that are weaker in, because they can become your strengths. And don't stay with stuff that you're familiar with. Go beyond what you think you can do, and never give up your dreams, man. Like it, you never know what's around the corner. And I had the opportunity and the blessing to be mentored by so many wonderful musicians over the years. And I can't help but be thankful and grateful for that. And you just never know who will pop up in your life next.